It's a big reason why when people look at their phones, they actually tend to eat more. It's because you get a dopamine hit, gives you that energy. Oh, I'm gonna eat some more. You eat again, you swipe, you eat, you swipe. Calorie tracking is supposed to make you lose weight, but it might actually be making you gain weight. It's not just about the numbers, it's about how tracking literally rewires your brain to crave food instead of control it. The way that you track your calories is probably triggering your reward pathways in ways that you don't even understand yet, making your weight loss journey that much harder, and it's something that I personally learned myself. Whenever I used to track my calories, I used to find myself eating way more than if I just didn't track them and ate intuitively. And I started to realize the things that were actually going on in my brain and how I could avoid them. At the end of the day, this is a psychology problem, not a math problem. And so in today's video, I'm going to talk about calorie tracking mistakes that are sabotaging your progress. You're going to want to watch this video because these are most likely calorie tracking tips that you've never heard before. So first, we need to talk about the hidden dopamine trap of calorie tracking. Whenever you use your phone, you get small dopamine hits. Every swipe, every single tap, it's just pleasure, pleasure, pleasure hitting your brain. Now this experience gets amplified when you associate it with food. It's a big reason why when people look at their phones, they actually tend to eat more. It's because you get a dopamine hit, gives you that energy. Oh, I'm gonna eat some more. You eat again, you swipe, you eat, you swipe. It's why you see a lot of people in their computer jobs actually gaining a lot of weight because they're always looking at the screen and mindlessly snacking, and there's no time for them to actually concentrate on the food that they're eating. When you actually track your calories, your brain gets a sense of accomplishment because you see the numbers go up on screen. Much like you'd be happy if you saw yourself earning money in a video game or you saw your bank account going higher, you're giving yourself that same reward pathway by tracking calories. Your brain doesn't care if the reward comes from a food or from a number, it treats it both the same. So now that we know that we're creating a dopamine spiking loop and amplifying it with food when we're tracking, we need to find out how to combat this. And so I've come up with several ways that have helped me stay in control while I'm tracking, starting with number one, which is to turn on the red light filter on your phone. Now we've all probably seen Paul Saladino and some of these other influencers talking about how they turn their screen red at night to influence their circadian rhythm and help them get to sleep. The reason that that works is because red light signals to your body that it's time to go to bed, it puts you in a calmer state, takes you out of fight or flight, but it also makes the thing that you're doing less stimulating. You probably notice if you put your phone on red, you don't want to use it as much. It's not as engaging. And so you don't get the same reward from tracking as you would if you had put it on blue light. By putting it in red mode, you are kind of limiting that artificial stimulation, telling your body it's time to get to work, it's still daytime, we need all this food. You limit the dopamine spike and you quell your appetite a little bit at the same time because it's more in that rest and digest state. It's thinking we're winding down for the day. It's not in go, go, go mode. Now the other thing you can do is to reduce the motion on your phone. And basically you just go into your settings, accessibility, reduce motion, and what this does is it reduces the dopamine spike you get from all the swiping and stuff like that. Some of the reasons we get so much dopamine from these things is because they are fast moving. The faster something moves on screen, often the more of a dopamine spike your brain gets. We enjoy fast results. And so when you reduce the motion on your phone, you actually reduce the amount of speed coming at you. You're more likely to make better decisions. You get less of a dopamine spike, and you're more likely to stay on your diet. Now tip number 3 is to avoid high dopamine foods while tracking. I think there's a lot of us who wonder, man, how is that guy able to stay so skinny eating cookies and pizza and he never tracks? But I guarantee if you were to track what he's eating in a calorie deficit or a calorie maintenance, but the thing is that he doesn't track it. And so he doesn't create that stress/dopamine response. He just focuses on when he's satisfied with the pizza or the cookies. And a lot of times if you're tracking, you're unable to do that. So what I found is that when I'm tracking foods or I'm tracking calorie surplus or even a deficit, it becomes more important for me to eat low reward foods. This is especially important for someone who works a desk job because your reward centers are stimulated all the time, or if you're on your phone all the time, your reward centers are constantly being stimulated. What you want to do is eat low reward, low glycemic foods. So I'm talking about lean meats, veggies, fruits, slow carbs like oatmeal, sweet potato, brown rice, things like that that are going to keep you full, satisfied, keep your brain on that level, because when you're trying to focus on your phone and fast movements are happening and then you introduce a cookie into the mix, a fast insulin spike, man, it's gonna make you want more. Similar to how we talked about how you can mindlessly eat while staring at your phone, you don't want to be tracking what you're eating while you're eating it. track it, and then sit down, eat your meal, and move on. Do not attempt to track your meal while you are eating it. It's not a great situation. It can be very taxing on your brain because when you're in a calorie deficit, your brain is in a high stress state and you're probably a little bit more anxious than you usually are. So when you sit down and then you try to track it and you start thinking about what are the macros, it can kind of subconsciously amplify this stress response that you're already under because you're at low calories. So what I suggest is to make sure that your meal is tracked before you sit down to eat it, or that you estimate and track your meal after you eat it. And even better is to track it away from the place that you were eating so you're not tempted to get more. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go to the kitchen, I'll make my food, I'll track it, I'll eat it, and then I'll come back immediately and keep working. Or what I will do is I'll have my meal, I'll estimate it in my head, and then I'll come back to my room where I work and I will track it there. So that way I get the dopamine spike from tracking, but I don't have food around to immediately kind of gravitate towards that and put something in my mouth. Don't want to do that. Now, the other thing that I suggest is to pre-portion your food so that you don't have to concentrate so hard. And this is why meal prep is usually recommended to people who are dieting. It's such a powerful tool that our brains get a sense of accomplishment. They get a sense of closure if we finish our meals. If you pre-portion something, you are much more likely to have a sense of control because it's like opening up a whole new thing or starting a whole new task after you finish that meal. Whereas if you go to the buffet, it all feels like one big thing. You keep eating, I'll add a little bit more of this, I'll add a little bit more of that, just to keep the fun going for your brain. And so when you pre-portion your meals, it's much easier to control yourself, much easier to prevent a binge. Now, the last thing I'm actually going to suggest is to do this hybrid approach that I tend to do, which is to pre-plan some of your meals for the day and then leave some for yourself to experiment when you're in a more rest and digest state for the end of the day. Oftentimes we come home for dinner when we want the ability to experiment a little. So what I suggest in that way is to have your meals prepped for like breakfast, lunch, snack, so that when you come home, you already know that you have more calories or more leeway to play with, and you can actually track that meal. You expend basically no mental energy on the first 3 meals or 4 meals of the day while you're busy at work, school, whatever you're doing. You just know how many calories are in that. And every day when you come back, then you're like, I just have to track this one meal. That's all. So the mental fatigue is reduced a ton and it's way easier to stick to your diet. I do this all the time. I have simple meals that I have prepped for like the day, which is like ground beef and rice, or like Greek yogurt and oatmeal. And I already know how many calories they are in my head, and it's like, okay, I had this one meal, I'm gonna have this next meal. But when I get to the end of the day, my brain knows, hey, I've had like 700 calories today. I've got like 1,300 to play with now. Let me track this and I can take my time. And again, still utilizing the same things, which is the red filter, reduced motion. All of those same things still apply, but you have more calories to play with. There's less anxiety about how much food you're going to eat, and there's less anticipation around the meal because you're in a calm state. All right, so you've got all of these tips and tricks. What's the point of this video? The point of this video is that calorie tracking is not bad. Dopamine-driven tracking is. You want to be able to track without getting addicted to the dopamine highs or the sense of accomplishment that you get from tracking it on your phone, which can be addictive and lead to crave-like behaviors, which are derailing your diet for no reason. So hopefully you found this video helpful. I do think that these are calorie tracking tips that no one really talks about, but can be hugely impactful in the way that you approach your diet, whether you're trying to lose weight or gain weight. So comment down below, has calorie tracking helped you or hurt you? Has it made things easier? Has it made it harder? Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button so that you can stay up to date when I post new content. Check out the links in the description for one-on-one coaching or my bulking program. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.